Now, we begin with breaking news out of Syria, of course. Opposition forces have declared the end of President Bashar al-Assad's rule after 13 years of civil war. Well, earlier, Reuters News reported that the leader, who ruled for 24 years, had actually left the capital, Damascus. A few hours ago, rebel forces had announced they'd entered Damascus. They also said they'd taken over the city's airport and the state TV building. The Syrian Prime Minister says the government was ready to hand over power to any leadership chosen by the people.
I'm here at home. I am not leaving, and I don't intend to leave. I expect in a peaceful manner to guarantee the continuity of the public authorities and the institutions and state apparatus, and to guarantee the safety and security for all citizens. And we are extending our hands even to the opposition, who extend their hands and gave assurances they will not cause any harm to any citizens who belong to this Syria of ours.
Well, moments before opposition fighters took control of the airport, open-source flight trackers recorded a single plane in Syria's airspace. An Ilyushin 76 aircraft with flight number Syrian Air 9218 was the last flight to take off from Damascus. First, it flew east, and then it turned north. Well, a few minutes later, its signal disappeared as it circled over Homs. Well, Hamda Salud takes a look back at Bashar al-Assad's years in power.
There was hope for political change in Syria when Bashar al-Assad inherited power in 2000 after the death of his father Hafiz. But apart from some economic reforms, he differed little from his father's 30-year tough rule. The young Asad wasn't originally meant to take power. He was studying to become an eye doctor in London when he was recalled after the death of his older brother Basil. Parliament had to lower the age for presidential candidates from 40 to 34 so that he could be eligible for office. A decade later, he faced his first real challenge. In March 2011, people took to the streets demanding democracy. The president dismissed the rebellion and called it a foreign conspiracy. Assad was also the head of the only legal party in Syria, the Ba'ath, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. His response was a heavy crackdown on protesters, which brought even more Syrians to the streets, eventually triggering a civil war. Assad did have some public support, particularly from the minority Alawites, a sect which his family is part of. But the Syrian leader repeatedly dismissed his opponents, calling them terrorists.
What we are facing is not a political problem, it's a conspiracy and terrorism. The political reform process continues to move forward, yet terrorism is not going down.
As the war dragged on, it was the backing of allies Russia and Iran which provided political and military support that allowed Assad to recapture territory and hold on to power. But his government was unable to regain legitimacy in the eyes of much of the international community. In the shadow of war, he held elections in government-controlled territories that were dismissed by many as undemocratic. And despite never winning the war, he survived, but with a narrow support base and with only partial control of the country. The Syrian leader was always uncompromising and defiant, and ignored a UN-led political process to bring about a democratic transition. Once seen as a reformist, Assad stands accused of using chemical weapons against his own people. His government was responsible for killing and imprisoning thousands, displacing millions, and for starving those who lived in besieged areas controlled by the rebels.
For Syrians, he will always be remembered as the president who exhibited very poor leadership. He's the one actually who destroyed his country, displaced his own people, and he's not only lost his rule, but he lost an entire homeland.
In elections in 2021, Assad won 7 more years in power. In 2023, after more than 12 years of conflict, Assad was welcomed back into the Arab League by the same Arab states that once shunned him. But the situation on the ground remained the same. Syrians who were hoping for a new beginning we're still living in economic collapse and a humanitarian crisis. And in late 2024, the long stagnant war came roaring back, with the rapid advance of opposition fighters, who quickly took control of several major cities at a time when Assad's allies were busy with their own conflicts elsewhere. But Bashar al-Assad leaves the country in ruins, and millions of Syrians wondering, what's next for this ancient nation?
Well, Raisel Sardar is in Gaziantep. That's on the Turkish border with Syria. Raisel, so as we were saying there earlier when we were talking to you, opposition fighters now in the capital. Reports that President Bashar al-Assad has fled, leaving on a plane that's taken off away from the airport. Bring this all together for us, Raisel. What have you been hearing there?
Well, regarding this here, in this Turkish, as official Turkish reaction, we do not have it yet. However, President Erdogan of Turkey, in the last couple of days, again and again, he has reiterated his position and expressing his support for the opposition's advance. And he says that we wish they will not face any issue and reach to Damascus, which is something that has happened now that they are in the capital city of Damascus. So just let's remember that the advance of the opposition has started on 27th of November, has started from the province of Idlib, which is directly connected to Turkey. And Turkey has been the lifeline of Idlib province, where this HDS-led opposition was based since 2016, or for the last 8 years. And now the same opposition has taken the control of Aleppo, the second largest city of Syria, then Hama, the fourth largest, and now Homs, the third largest, and finally the capital of the country. So for Turkey, on one hand, it is according to their calculus, providing a great opportunity, because Turkey's position was an anti-Syrian government position for more than decades. And seeing that government gone is something that Ankara was wishing for. And also, they believe that a stable the Syria run by the opposition will perhaps create an opportunity that the Syrian refugees in Turkey, roughly around 3.5 million officially, majority of them could go back to their own country. This issue of the immigration has been quite an issue for Turkey, particularly in the last couple of years. So that is another opportunity that Ankara is looking for. But on the other hand, it's extremely concerned as well. While the status quo in Syria is just shattering down, breaking down, then it's not only the Syrian opposition backed by Turkey or indirectly having a coordination with, but also we are talking about the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Kurdish, mainly made up of the opposition that's backed by the USA. And Turkey sees that opposition as a terror organization, but now they are in control of several cities, including Raqqa, Deir ez-Zor, and Al Bukamal, the border gates that's connecting Syria to Iraq as well. So Turkey's position, on one hand, they are supporting the opposition's advance toward the cities, taking the capital, and finally taking the control of the government. But on the other hand, Ankara doesn't want the Kurdish-led the opposition, SDF, to have more and more territories, which is a case that has happened in the last year. So it's quite a difficult balance for Ankara.
Raisel, and statements coming from the Prime Minister of Syria on state TV, which we saw pictures earlier. He hasn't fled the country, surprisingly. What's he been saying, Raisel?
Well, he's simply saying that he's at home, he's not leaving Damascus. But that doesn't mean that the government is decided to fight. So simply he is saying that we have been given guarantees by the HTS-led opposition that is now gradually taking the control of the capital. And he's saying that we have been promised that there will not be looting, there will not be storming into the state apparatuses, the governmental buildings and so on. And just Minutes after his statement, another statement came from the leader of the HTS, the opposition, Mohammed al-Julani, simply calling on his soldiers, on his troops, the opposition fighters, of not storming, vandalizing the state, the buildings, the government buildings and facilities, and saying that let this same apparatuses, buildings and facilities to be managed by the prime ministry of Syria. So we see that based on these statements that actually now there is a coordination between the opposition that is taking control of the capital gradually and the prime ministry that is already in Damascus. So, and for that, the aim of this coordination is actually to provide or to preserve, to make sure that there will be a smooth transition, because now we are talking about a 54-year rule of the Assad dynasty coming to an end, and it is coming after almost 13 years of a civil war. So there is a lot at stake. Anytime anything could break up and the new violence or the conflicts could just erupt. So that's why they need to be extremely careful. Now the opposition is giving guarantees to the different segments of the societies, non-Muslims, minorities, Shia Muslims, and all the other. And in return, now those who have served in the highest ranks of the government, including the prime minister himself, is actually reiterating that, confirming that they have been the guarantees, and he's confirming that they are ready to cooperate with the incoming leadership, not the government yet, but with the incoming leadership. So to just make sure that there will be a smooth transition.
All right, Al Jazeera's Raisal Serdar there in Gaziantep. That's on the Turkish border with Syria. Raisal, for now,